Okay, matrix by matrix multiplication. I'm going to do this slowly so that you can understand things, and then we'll show you how to do it on the calculator. But there are, again, similar to scalar multiplication, there are situations where they try and fool you, and they know which things can and can't be done on the calculator. So imagine we got some shops, they're called A, B, C, D, and they are selling things like sweaters. So that's sweaters and t-shirts. And that's in a table. And you can see that a table easily converts to a matrix, the same thing really. But I want to keep my labeling A, B, C, D, and this comes important on other matrices you do later, and my ST. Some people go on the right, some people on the left for the ST. Doesn't make a huge difference at the moment. And then we've got another table about costs, or how much you're selling them for. So $9 for the sweater and $5 for the t-shirt. Realize that these are not exactly realistic numbers, but they're simple numbers, and we're looking for understanding here. Okay, so I just label those up like that. And so now we've got two matrices, and we can now actually think about multiplying one by the other, and then what does that mean when we actually multiply them? Now we've got our shops A, B, C, D, and sweaters and t-shirts, and then we've got sweaters and t-shirts and our dollars. So those labels are going to help us understand things. And we know, again, it's rows by columns. So we know that the order of this matrix, and this is very important, the order of this matrix is 2 rows by 4 columns. And if we look at our other one, you'll be able to see that the order of this matrix is 1 row by 2 columns. Now, if we're going to do some matrix multiplication, we have to make a pretty face, as I like to call it. And so the first thing we do is we do a circle around these two numbers. Now, if these two numbers must be the same, and that'll make it more sense in a minute. So these two aren't, so I say that doesn't have a pretty nose, or mathematically, it is undefined. So can you do multiply those two matrices together? Well, the 4 and the 1 are different, so it is undefined, and you can't. So, oh, well, our first attempt was we can't. Let's try switching the order. By the way, if you type this on your calculator and try it out, you don't even need the time symbol, by the way. Two matrices next to each other, they know this, it's multiplying. It says invalid dimension. Invalid dimension means undefined. So that's what that means, undefined. So if they say, is the matrix multiplication of this defined? You would say, no. You wouldn't say invalid dimension. So let's just remind ourselves, this is ST dollars. This is our shops A, B, C, D. We're just selling sweatshirts and t-shirts. And we said this is a 1 by 2, and this is a 2 by 4. And I said, what happens is, if you draw a circle and make a pretty nose here, you can see that they're the same number. So tick, that means defined. Or as I like to say, it has a pretty nose. And why do I call it a nose? If I take these two things, which are like eyeballs, and then join them up with a nice big smiley face, I actually know that the size, or the order of my answer is going to be a 1 by 4. And then I'm going to show you very slowly how actual multiplication works. So, but if you look, this is S and T, and then we're going to multiply it by this column, which is S, S and T, you see, and then by this column, then by this column, and then this column. So that first row is going to multiply all of those columns. All right, let's go through that slowly and see how that works. So I'm going to have to draw this quite large. And we know it's going to be a 1 by 4. So our first number is going to be this row by this column. And that means it is 9 times 3 plus 5 times 4. And that's the first element in that thing. And then if I do it again, if I'm doing it this time, not this one, let me highlight. I'm going to do this. It's always that row by this column now. So that was the first row by the second column now. So I'll write that in green. It's going to be 9 times 4 plus 5 times 2. All right, and let's do the next one. So let's choose some blue. I'm going to say that again, it's this row, so it's the first row by the third column. So that's why it gives me the element 1, 3. Remember the names to these elements. So this is going to be again 9 times 8 because those are sweater numbers. So this is sweater, this is sweater because it lines up with the sweater column, and then plus 5 times the 0 because that's the t-shirts, 5 times 0. All right, and let me just eliminate all that. And then we're going to highlight this in purple. So it's this one again, now by this column, and that's the first row, fourth column. So that's why we've only got one row in our answer, because we don't ever have a second row. So it's going to be 9 times, oh, where's it? It's not in purple, is it? It's supposed to be in purple. 9 times 0 plus 5 times 5. And so if we put all that together in our final answer, 9 times 3 is 27, and 27 plus 5 times 4, that's 47. And then our next number is 9 times 4, which is 36, plus 5 times 2, which is 10, so that's 46. And then we've got 9 times 8, which is 72, plus 0, so that's 72. And we've got our last one, 9 times 0 is 0, plus 5 times 5 is 25. And that is our final answer, but that's the way it works, okay? So let's just label those elements. That was element, I'm going to call it A11. That's a first row, second column. That's a first row, third column, and a first row, fourth column. All right. Looks long and complicated, but this is what we need to understand from this, that the reason we're doing the S by the T is because this number is matching with this number, and then this number is matching with this number, and that gave us that last one over there as an example. Of course, you can put all this in your calculator, and out pops the lovely answer that we got before, and you're all like, woohoo! Why do I have to go through all that long thing? Because there's an example where that's not going to help you. Now, we're looking at multiplying these matrices, but you can see they're the same matrices, but in different order. So which one is correct? Well, first thing you do is check, are they both defined? So this is a 2 by 2, and this is a 2 by 2, and it's quite easy to see that yes, the 2's match up, so we're defined. And the answer, what size is it going to be? What order is it going to be? It's going to be a 2 by 2 with that smiley face there. And the same thing happens here. This is a 2 by 2, this is a 2 by 2, and then we link them up with our little pretty nose here. Yes, it's defined, and the answer is this, so that's a 2 by 2. So that hasn't actually helped us at all, has it? They've both got defined answers, but which one is going to be right? Because they might be on a multiple choice question, and it's the kind of thing they like to do on a multiple choice question, to be honest. How do we know which one is the right one? Well, let's go back to our labeling system. Imagine we just got two shops, A and B, and it's sweaters and t-shirts. And then we've got the sweaters and t-shirts, and we have, like, say, normal price and discount price. And so that's sweaters and t-shirts, normal price, discount price, because it's the same matrix. And then this one must be shop A, shop B, and sweaters and t-shirts. So you can definitely multiply both of these through, but one of these makes sense and one of them doesn't. And this goes back to what I was trying to say before about the lining up. This has sweaters and t-shirts. Sweaters and t-shirts has to line up with sweaters and t-shirts. But if you look at this top one, you've got A and B lining up with N and D. They're not the same letters. So A does not match with N, B does not match with D, because remember the row by column, we're always multiplying row by column, the Roman Catholics again. And so the same thing, but down here, S does match with S and T does match with T. So row by column does work. So actually, this one is wrong and this one is right. So the first one we said was wrong because the labels don't match up. Wrong because this was A, B, S, T, S, T, N, D, but this was S, T, N, D, A, B, S, T, and so 9 and 5 match up with 3 and 0 because they're S and T row by column. So actually the correct answer would be this one. Even though both of them give you an answer, you can see like you've got a number here and you might say that was the answer, and you got a number here might be the answer, and you might be sitting there in a multiple choice question going, but there's 2 correct answers. Well, no, only one of them actually lines up with the lettering, and that won't be told to you by the calculator.